Bring in more revenue while saving money and differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack vying to win those guests by becoming more environmentally friendly. We will show you how easy it is and how cheap it can be, if not free, and share all the opportunities available. So join us each week as we take another step along the green path. That's one more step to differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack. The Green Path podcast is kindly sponsored by Sestonica, the first sustainability recognition for vacation rental homes. What if vacation rental professionals could influence millions of travellers to make their own homes more sustainable? Show the world that you have taken steps to make your vacation rental consume less and get your badge on sestonica.com. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Green Path podcast. If you are just starting out on your Green Path journey or are looking for some motivation to get you started, today's episode is one of those inspirational ones. Instead of starting from scratch with your research, let's take a look at what another property manager or other accommodations are already doing. It's not as difficult as you think. So let's get started. Today, my guest is Lisa from La Résidence Bed and Breakfast in France. Hello, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, Deborah. I'm well, thank you.
That's good. Thank you very much for coming along today and joining me. Lisa, can we start off with, where did your Green Path journey start? You as an individual rather than as a business, or did they both happen at the same time?
Well, I think they probably happened about the same time, and I'll admit I'm a kind of a laggard when it comes to making these changes. We moved to France in mid to 2018 when we bought the bed and breakfast, and prior to that we'd been living in Melbourne for 13 years, and before that we were in London for about 6 years, so city dwellers. And I think moving to the countryside, and it is beautiful, the countryside around here, you start to see the changes to the environment and to the weather patterns in a way that we never saw in the city. So while I was, you read about the issues in the paper, there was always a disconnect between my city life and what was really going on. So I think it was in 2018 when we came here, and I can sit on my sofa and look at the other side of the gorge here and watch the seasons change. Whereas, in my, city apartment, you didn't get that.
Your weather app told you about the seasons changing.
Exactly. And I think back in, there was an emerging awareness of the environmental issues linked to climate change. And then in the end of 2019, we went to East Africa on holiday for 3 months. And one of the trips that we made was to a seaweed farm. There was a women's collective who make soaps and beauty products for the local tourist industry. And they were telling us that one of the types of seaweeds that they grow it all grows in very shallow, warm water, but one of them is very sensitive to water temperature. And what they'd noticed over the preceding 10 years is this species of seaweed starting to die because the waters were too warm. And they were having to plant it further out to sea. And of course, harvesting seaweed's a heavy, hot job. You've got big cloth. The reality is that their jobs were much harder because the sea was warming imperceptibly to us or to them, but they could see it in the seaweed. So I think it was all of those things that really made us stop and think about the way we were living and how we were running the business, and decided that we needed to be kind of part of the movement as well to become more sustainable.
And what was your first step? How did you start?
Okay, well, while we were still on holiday, I started trying to learn about the science. So there were lots of webinars and podcasts that I was listening to. Some of them by the big tour operators around the world. And I think, I'll be honest, and found it really quite daunting. I'm not a scientist, my background, I'm an accountant by background. The science was beyond me. And there were times when I felt a bit like a rabbit in headlights, because you've got this huge, issue with climate change. The things we need to do to slow it down or stop it are enormous. And what was I going to do as this kind of, small accommodation owner? And so I think I came across Bob Garner somewhere on one of the podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
And his advice was just do something, just change your electricity supply, just have a go. And I actually did it. We moved on holiday, and we were in Zambia, and I sat on my laptop and, you know, researched the change, made the change, saved some money. So by the time we came back to France, it had been done. And of course, once you start doing the small things, you think, well, what else can I do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I came back and we changed all the light bulbs in the house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we decided no more water bottles in the room, or little plastic sachets of coffee, or, you know, the toiletries. There were just little things that when you started to look around the business, you realize how much we were contributing to the problem, and that the resolution was actually quite straightforward and simple.
Yeah. Look, the thing about the small amenities is a no-brainer. That's a very, very simple solution. In terms of the tea and coffee and the water that you provide in the rooms, how do you tackle that now?
So we've just got some glass jugs. So we just filter the water and put the glass jugs of water in the rooms, and then refresh them every day. And the tea we buy. We've still got the tea sachets, but this organic tea selection. And then the coffees, we've got the cafetières and fresh coffee.
Perfect.
And then fresh milk in flasks if guests want it.
Yeah, yeah. I spoke to another accommodation provider, and the problem at the time was, how do we give milk to the guests? And in all honesty, I can't remember. I think they just got to put it in little jugs every day, but fresh milk. And yes, that's great. What about, okay, there was another accommodation provider who mentioned rubbish bins and plastic bags in each rubbish bin. What do you do?
Okay, so we used to have plastic bags in wicker bins.
Yeah.
And at some point, we quickly changed to compostable plastic bags.
Yeah.
And a conversation with my dad one day, and I can't remember the quote, but he quoted Einstein, and like everything leaves something. So we've now ditched the wicker bins. We have plastic bins that we wash out, empty and wash out, which is a bit yucky at times, you know, depending what, you know, people have put in them. But there's no plastic at all now.
Yeah, there's no waste. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, besides the rubbish in them.
Yeah.
Right. And given that you're a bed and breakfast, you are providing food. So basically, what are the, in terms of what you're providing, whether it's soaps or the breakfast, is everything coming locally from local areas?
As much as we can, much more than we used to. So for breakfast, we used to serve cold meats. We don't serve meat anymore unless someone specifically asks for it. We don't serve meat, and we serve eggy something, tortilla, frittata instead. And the eggs come from our local market. So they come in all shapes and sizes, still covered in feathers and poo at times. But, you know, that's instead of the, you know, packaged meat that we'd buy from the supermarket.
Yeah.
The fruit, fresh fruit, as much as we can, we buy from the local market. I'd say most of it comes from the local market. Now, it's not all grown locally. Some of it is imported, but it's still supporting, you know, local people's businesses.
And in May 2020, was that like a turning point for you? You signed the tourism declares. You signed up for tourism declares.
Well, it was because while we're away on holiday, I was looking at. I think I was looking at booking.com and all the kind of tourism green awards that you could get, and just didn't like them. They didn't seem very credible to me. You know, you filled in a form and paid your fee and you got a badge, and it was a bit, I felt it was a little bit fraudulent. And I think I listened to Bob. He did a podcast that was not about sustainability, but he was part of it and posted the link. I followed the link, found the organisation. I thought, this is the one. This is how we can legitimise what we're going to be doing.
And was that difficult to go through or to apply for?
So what we had to do is to make a public declaration of our intentions, and then follow that up a year later with the plan. So we're a bit late with the plan, and the organisation's now merged in with another one. So I just used the membership of that organisation to learn as much as I could from other people and from scientists and whatever.
Mm. Mm. But you do have a very, very good page on your website. So this is how you're sharing with everyone your journey. Can you talk us through what you've got on that page and any sort of like feedback from guests?
Okay, so it's just a tab on the website, and the website's in French and English, and it just sets out the commitment we made back in May 2020 to tourism declares. And then what, not very dense. And then after that, we've talked about what we plan to do in the future. Very easy things to talk to guests about, so changing electricity supply, reducing our plastic, moving to an online guest book, changing light bulbs, another very kind of quick and easy thing to do. And then the plans for the future. So it's kind of more of the same, really, just building on our knowledge that we've built up, building on feedback to guests. So things like whenever we change an electrical appliance now, the priority is to get the highest energy rating possible. And anyone in this business knows that, we go through kind of washing machines and fridges and freezers and hair dryers and all those kind of things. So it just sets out what we're going to do over the next, I think I said the next 18 months. But included in that plan, I guess, is the things that we're going to find difficult as well. So we're in an old stone house in the middle of a medieval village. We don't have a lot of space around us, very restricted on what we can do. So things like getting rid of our old oil heating, and I'd like to replace it for solar, is not possible. It's just not allowed. So I wanted to be really honest with people who were reading it about what we can do and what we can't do, because I don't want to present our business as being, super green when I know there's some impediments to that.
Yeah, but with these old buildings and the old houses, your hands are tied with some of the solutions. Yeah. And what about insulation? How are you with insulation in the property then?
Yeah, we're pretty good. I mean, the walls aren't insulated, but they're incredibly thick. So when it heats up or cools down, it tends to stay that way. But the roof is very well insulated. So we did have an audit done last year, and we got a C rating, which was higher than I expected. Yeah, so
that's
very good.
Very good for an old building.
Yeah.
They don't build them like they used to. And you're also going to be doing, you're going to be, with some of the future changes, you're going to reduce the laundry water temperature. Now, I have heard about that, reducing the temperature, but using a high temperature for ironing. So that it's just going to be as hygienic. It's just that you're not going to, burn through the energy to heat the hot water.
Oh, well, during the pandemic, we were washing everything at 60 degrees, putting it through a hot dryer and then through a really hot iron. And that's gone, and we don't need to do it. So already we've reduced the temperature to 30 degrees on the washes, trying to eliminate using the dryer for kind of sheets, but it still goes through a really hot iron. So I'm happy that it's still kind of going back on the beds in the most hygienic way that it can.
Yeah. And you're also going to record water and energy usage. How do you plan on doing that?
Well, the electricity and the water is listed on the bill, so I just need to go back and look at the bills to see how it's reduced. And I'm confident we've done it with the water, just reduced watering in the garden and having the kind of shower heads and taps that use less water. The rubbish is a bit more tricky, and I'd like to offer something really sophisticated, but I'm not going to. We separate our landfill from recycling. That's the only two, separations that we need to do, and obviously the garden waste. And I've just got a big piece of paper on the back of the garage door, and I count the number of bags. So use the same size bag every time, fill it up about the same amount, and every time my partner goes to take the rubbish down to the local bins, he just marks it on the back of the door. So that's it.
Yeah, I think it's all about awareness. You are just being more aware I mean, we get electricity bills, we get water bills. Do we ever look at really how much we've used? We might look at the graph, this time versus last year, but do we really have a good look at it? So I think it is about just being aware. Start a little spreadsheet.
That's it. And I want a story to tell to the guests as well. We can talk about what we're doing, but at the moment, I just think it's working. I think it's reducing our emissions. I want to be able to tell a proper story about how much, how many kilowatts less we're using this year than last year, or how many, I don't know, bags of rubbish less that we're taking to the bins. Because I think that's the kind of proof that what we're doing is making a change.
And look, on your listing site, you have your sustainability page. Do you share what you do on any other listing sites?
We have an online guest book, which is another change we made. We used to have those paper folders that you slot in all the leaflets that you get through the door. So it's on that page. So it's in that guest book, and that guest book goes to everyone who books. So we use booking.com. And get about, I don't know, 35% of our bookings that way. But whenever they book, they get an automatic message with the link to the guest booking.
Yeah.
And if they book directly through our website, in the booking confirmation, they get the link. And that's a separate section in the guest book. So everyone sees it.
But on your listing on booking.com, do you say in either the wording or in a slide what you're doing in terms of being green?
Yeah, so the link to the guest book will give all the same information that's on our website. So it's all listed there. But it doesn't explicitly direct them to open it because of our green measures, which is quite a good idea, actually. I might...
No, well, I'm just saying that if a guest is looking to rent a green property, if they're just looking at your property on booking.com, how will they know you're green?
They have a sustainability kind of rating system that they introduced last year. So I can't remember how many leaves we've got. I think we've got 3 leaves.
Okay, you do.
And that's searchable as well. So if you just want, a property that way, you can search on it.
Yeah. And the guests that do come along or that do book, do they ever make a comment about what you're doing in terms of sustainability?
They do, actually. Yeah, not everybody. We had American guests last week who run like a horse rescue farm in the States, and they made a point of thanking us for what we were doing.
Oh, isn't
that she'd seen the website and she'd read the guest book, and they went into the garden, had a good look around the garden, had a look at the worm composting farm that we've got, and thanked us. And Richard, my partner, was initially a bit skeptical that this was going to do anything for our business. He thought it was going to put guests off and cost us money. And he was really excited after he checked them in and said, Sue wants to speak to you because she wants to thank us for everything we've done, all the sustainability stuff. And, it doesn't get much better than that, really.
Yeah, that's a really lovely pat on the back.
Yeah.
Oh, how lovely. Now, also, you just spoke of your garden. So you've actually done the type of plants that you've planted, all part of the sustainability program as well. What are you doing in the garden?
Well, when we moved in back in 2018, and this was before Britain left the EU, my parents, who live in southwest England, keen gardeners, brought over loads of plants from their garden and cuttings. And we tried to grow them unsuccessfully. I think I've managed to kill most of them. Our summers are hotter and drier, and our winters colder than my parents in Somerset. And in the summer, it needs to be constantly watered. I think for the last 3 years we've been here, the water restrictions mean we can't do it, so everything dies. And we serve breakfast in the garden in the summer, so I've got to keep it looking neat and tidy. So what we're doing now is just planting more Mediterranean drought-tolerant plants, lots of grasses, lots of lavenders. I've got some eucalyptus out there. And it just keeps it green and neat and tidy in the time when we can't water.
Drought-proof and local.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Yeah.
You read in the magazines, the best indication of best way to get ideas about what kind of grows locally is to just wander through the village, wander in the area and see what other people are growing successfully. I should have thought of it before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's a great tip. Well, we're going to start wrapping up now. Is there any other tip or any advice that you could give to anyone listening that wants to start on their journey?
Well, I'd say just start somewhere, take small steps. It will, your enthusiasm and momentum will build over the time. I'd say if you're not a scientist, maybe stay away from the scientists. You know, they are very clever people, but too clever for my little bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
And Bob Garner's now set up Environmental, which has got huge, practical, easy ways to start becoming more sustainable. And I'd head there.
Mm, mm.
Um, and go back to the science sometime later if you want to, I
Yeah.
think.
I will pop a link for Environmental in the description below, and I will pop a link for the sustainability page on your website too, because I think everyone needs to have a good look at that.
Thank you.
And Lisa, thank you so much for your time and for your tricks and tips and a great story about how you got started. It's really lovely.
Thank you very much, Deborah.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode and were at least a little bit inspired. If you'd like to catch up on the other episodes that you've missed, just head to thegreenpathpodcast.com. See you next time.